Okay, so Kara and I are outside in the beautiful weather today. It's still nice because it's early May. So Kara's going to talk through her lesson for me, and I'm just going to script on my little ELD 4-pane lesson here. And Kara, you can start, and I'll just jot while you're speaking.
Okay, so this lesson is specifically for our ELD designated classes, and because the units in the ELD for Study Sync are somewhat tied to the core classes, it's on the Moral Compass unit, which is Unit 4. So I'm supplementing that because some of the texts are repetitive, and so in order to supplement it, maybe make it a little bit more relatable to the students, I'm supplementing with one of the blasts from Study Sync, and so and it's about the influence of celebrities and that sort of thing, and so which goes along with the moral compass and what makes us who we are. So the anticipatory set, we're going to start off by generating a list of just famous people that they know and categorizing those. So they're going to work with a partner, work on those speaking and listening skills, and put those into categories of like actors, maybe sports or whatever. I'm going to let them choose their categories and then just generate a list of as many famous people that they know of. And I'm pretty generous with what they can do YouTube people. I don't even care what they as long as they just
we may not know
names.
half
Yes.
of them.
Right. And then as a whole class, we're going to take those names and we're going to put them into categories in a Venn diagram, and they'll have a copy of the Venn diagram. They can start doing that with their partner. They're going to put them in a positive category, a negative category, or a neutral category. And so that will just get them thinking about like how are they impacted by celebrities, and how does that affect who we become and the choices that we make and our character, which is the foundation of this whole unit. After that, we're going to do a deconstruction of a text, which is the blast. So they're not going to have access to the blast itself until we're done deconstructing the blast. So I'm going to read it out loud. It's a fairly short. The blasts are perfect for this because they're nice and short. They're easy to understand. This one specifically is focused on the movie Black Panther.
Oh, okay.
So it's super relatable to the kids. Most of them have seen it. Yeah. And so it talks about like the impact that it has on culture and how it's influencing kids. The fact that it has a mostly African-American cast and stuff like that. Right. And so I'm going to read this to them 3 times, and they will have on the back of their handout, they have notes, and each time they're asked to answer specific questions. So the first one, the first read, when I read it out loud, they have to listen intently, write down notes about what the main idea is, what it's about. The second read, they're going to answer who is this talking about, more specific things. Okay. And then the third time, they're going to take a couple notes about what does it mean to them? How does it relate specifically to their own lives?
Okay. What's the third one?
How it relates to them.
Okay. So main idea, who is this talking about, and then how it relates to them.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to just show this to Steve so that he can see. And here's one of the things I like about this is very similar to what they're going to be doing on the LPAC test, where they're having to listen to an academic text and pull out note-taking. So nicely done there. And I think it's a good time to say this for the people who are watching this. You can see the shift. So we were in a third grade classroom today, and now we're in an 8th grade classroom, and the shift between 3rd grade and 8th grade. So it becomes much more academic language focus, rather than obviously 3rd grade language focus. So this piece here is going to be a description, would you say, or would you say it's a summary?
I think at first, after the first read, it's going to tend more to be a summary, and then as they progress through the second into the third read, then it becomes more of a description of things. They're looking for more specific things. Okay. So the first read is just like, what's the overview? What's the gist of this? And then they're listening for more specific things. Okay. And those, what we ask them when teachers create these lessons, what they're asking the students to listen for can change depending on what skill you're working on, what you're wanting them to focus on. You just change those 3. So how is this different from, so if you did the same lesson
that wasn't designated ELD. If you just did this with, well, let me have you finish the lesson, and then let's talk that through.
Okay. Once we're done with that, then I'm going to have them, once we have them deconstruct it and take notes, I'm going to have them work with their partner and compare the notes. And they're going to look at each other's notes to see who, what did this person pull out, what did their partner pull out. And what that does for them is it helps them, we all have different experiences, so we listen for different things, we hear things differently. And so it helps them catch the little things that you miss for,
Good.
They miss stuff for a variety of reasons.
Right.
So then at that point, then they will get out their computers and they're going to open up a study sync lesson. What I love about the blast that's been changed this year is that they can be assigned as a writing assignment.
Awesome.
So you don't have to assign it as a blast. You just assign it, generate a writing topic. So for them, what I want them to do is reconstruct the text.
That's good.
And so they're going to open it up, and then they just have a spot. It says reconstruct the text with your notes. They even have, it has to be their own words. So then that becomes a summary in their own words.
That's so good. Yeah. And one of the ELD standards, one of the parts of the framework, right? So you've got your ELD standards listed here. So I'm going to show those to the camera. So the ELD standards are just listed. The Common Core standards are here, and the ELD standards here. Nicely done. And they match really nicely with the Common Core standards. One of the things that is a strategy is to, there are three, right? Text reconstruction, text deconstruction, and then forming a utterance. So basically building a sentence.
Right.
I just called it Bob the Builder. I'm trying to think of the right name for it.
I don't think we should use that.
Probably not Bob the Builder. So you're having them reconstruct the text. So one of the strategies that you're using is actually an ELD strategy that comes from the ELA, ELD framework. And that's really powerful because what it does for older kids is it lets them, it's a scaffold for making your language sound like academic language.
Right.
After you've deconstructed it, now you're reconstructing it. I love that you use those terms. So,
and the other thing that
great.
I did do on that assignment is what's nice is that you can create your own prompts. So I actually put sentence frames in there for them. I have a couple, even though I have the higher level ELD students, most of them do pretty good. They still struggle with the academic language. And so I gave them some sentence frames that's kind of fill in the blank, but they're looking for, I want them to look for specific things in their summary, to quote somebody, to do that kind of stuff and kind of build some of those writing skills as well.
That's super good.
Throughout the lesson, they're talking to each other. So when they work on their anticipatory set and the Venn diagram, they're going to be talking to the partners. They're going to be giving me ideas to put up on the board. And then even in the independent practice, they have to read their summary to their partner before they can submit it.
Okay.
And then they submit their notes. They submit their study sync assignment. Then they actually have, I don't know if we'll have time for this today, but they have a survey on Google Classroom that is ask them specific questions about the influence of celebrities on their life. Do they buy magazines and stuff like that? So they have a little Google form to fill out that we'll discuss probably tomorrow.
Okay, I love that. So that's like an extension for tomorrow.
Kind of like a closure to this lesson, and then we'll talk about tomorrow our class in general. Like what do we notice happens the most with the students that are in our class.
Got it.
Yeah.
So your closure then is them reading the summary and then turning in their writing, which I love because the most academic writing as kids get older, the best way to get academic oral language is to have them write and then read what they wrote because that's what raises the register.
Right.
So when you and I are talking, we don't use the term register unless we're being videotaped for a lesson. Yeah. You and I talk all the time.
I say that all the time.
Yeah, I don't think you and I have ever been like, so Kara, let's talk about register. We're busy talking about other stuff, right? But what happens when we read our writing, then that just bumps it up to that more academic level. So I love that. So for the language...
And I always love to have, sorry to interrupt, but I always love to have any of my students, ELD or not, reread their writing because a lot of my students have a tendency to just not check for capitalization, not check for punctuation, or even check their grammar to make sure those sentences make sense. And so anytime they write essays, things like that, I make them reread out loud to another person. So, and most of the time that catches a lot of their mistakes.
Yeah, and that's really an every kid strategy, right?
Yeah.
And I also like the amount of interaction that you have. So we've talked a lot about half of that 30 minutes should be interaction, and you've got that highly interactive. And when we talk about interaction with older kids, it could be interaction with each other, or it could be interaction with the text. The text and the writer, or the text and the reader. So I love that. So I wrote down for language objective, we're really going to write a description. So the language is going to be is and are and was. I'm going to leave that, usually with language objective, I always say, have a sentence that sounds like what you're after. But with older kids, because this is going to be a full paragraph, I'm really just going to leave that language objective as description.
Yeah.
And then your reteaching is whatever they didn't get.
Yeah.
Like if they're still struggling with tenses and such. So yeah, that's solid, Kara. It's a good lesson. And I'm super excited to see it. So, alrighty. Is there anything you want me to look for other than your awesomeness, which will be fully on display?
Not anything right that I can think of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll debrief after, and we're excited to go in your room.
And Jill, right before I stop the recording, can you just show your forepain really fast? How you took Kara's information and kind of, and I can actually come over. I'll just.
Okay. So let's recall, Chicken Scratch is the name of my game.
That's fine.
But if it's readable to Kara and me,
Yeah.
we're good. So Kara's lesson, and this is probably a format you use for every lesson, right? Like this is like her daily lesson plan, and I'm sure you do this every day, just like this.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, every time. So we, obviously, it's like, okay, we're videotaping. This is like super special.
You're giving away my
yeah,
secrets.
yeah. There are no secrets among the.
I could have put some pretty graphics
Yeah,
on it or
right.
something.
Like, oh look, I always had a graphic.
That's great.
It does. So she's got all of her information here. I love personally that you've got your supplemental stuff in ERWC, and I love ERWC, so big fan. So this is just her 5-step direct instruction lesson, and all I did was, as Kara was talking, I was putting the aspects of this lesson onto this lesson. And you can see how quickly that would be done. So when Kara's planning in the future, or any of us are, she wouldn't even necessarily have to write this out. Now, Kara had to write it out for her thinking for us. So this is for the viewer. And then for the teacher, I can just jot everything we talked about. I just figured out, okay, that's going to be description. Here's what I'm going to do for input. You see I made a little note here, speaking and listening. And then I just made a note here. She's going to do those 3 reads. And Kara, I want to add to this. This is so LPAC. I mean, I already said that, but I just want to say that again. This right here, for those of you who are watching, this is really powerful for LPAC. It really is about listening for academic language and being able to pull out those pieces. So this is your LPAC preparation. We know research tells us that test prep doesn't work, but having kids naturally use the strategies that they're going to use on the measure does. So I like that you've just built that right in the lesson. And then this is just the interaction, and you can see, look at all that interaction there. So that's the 15 minutes of interaction out of 30. So this is 5, 5, 5, and then this will be 15. So I'm really excited to see the lesson because you've just got all those pieces there. If you're watching the other video with Crystal this morning, she used Post-its, and then she can put those Post-its right in the book. Totally up to you whether you write, just a quick forepaint, whoop, and then the wind got us. But what I think is most important is, it doesn't have to be beautiful. It's usable. So what Kara knows what she's doing just from looking at her lesson or looking at this lesson. So, and now we're gonna go into her room.